Okay, hi everyone. We're going to use function notations in this video. You're used to seeing things in terms of solving for y in terms of x. And all we're going to do is change this to function notation. Instead of saying y, we're going to write this as f of x equals 4x plus 2. And it's our second function. Instead of saying f of x, we're going to go g of x equals x squared minus 2x. You're going to do the same thing, but instead of using a table, we're going to just use we can still use a table, but instead of using the table such as x, y, and plugging in, say, 0, 1, 2, and then plugging in and finding it, so you plugged in 0, you'd get 2, 1, you'd get 6, and 2, you'd get 10. We're going to use x, f of x, and do the same thing. And you're going to get the same values. We're just changing the notation. And the same thing for that one. If we had a third function, we'd call it h of x. Okay. So let's do, these are the two functions we're going to work with. And I'm going to show you how to use it. So we want to find g of negative 4, f of negative 4, f of 0, and g of 1. So the first thing I want to do is write my g of x down. And I already forgot what it was, x squared minus 2x. So g of x equals x squared minus 2x. And all I'm going to do is everywhere there's an x, remember this is your g of x, so my x happens to be negative 4. So I'm going to write g of negative 4 equals, and everywhere there's an x, I'm going to input negative 4. And I'm going to evaluate. So this is going to be 16 plus 8, and that equals 24. And so basically all you're doing is saying, well, when x is negative 4, my y, and this time we're calling it g of x instead of y, is 24. You're doing the same thing, but we can see it better. We can see what our x is without having to do a table. So let's try f of 4. I'm going to write down my f function, 4x minus 2. So I'm going to write f of x equals 4x minus 2. Now, okay, I'm not going to have room. F of negative 4, everywhere there's an x, I'm going to put negative 4. And when I get that, that's going to equal negative 16 minus 2, which is negative 18. So when x is negative 4, my f of x is going to be negative 18. Okay, now let's do the 0 one. Okay, so we're going to use this equation here. So f of 0 equals 4 times 0 minus 2, which just equals negative 2, because 0 minus 2 is negative 2. So when x is 0, my f of x is negative 2. And the last one, g of 1. So I'll write g of x down again. So g of 1, everywhere there's an x, I'm putting a 1 instead of the x. There should be no x's in here. And then I don't worry about this anymore. I just take care of that. That's 1 minus 2 equals negative 1. And again, all that means is when x is 1, g of x is negative 1. Just like you did when it was a y. Now what this is useful for is when we get into more complicated ones. So let's say I have f of x equals 4x minus 2. It looks kind of complicated, but I'm doing the same thing. I'm going to evaluate f of negative 2 first. You work from the inside out. So f of negative 2 equals 4 times negative 2 minus 2. That equals negative 8 minus 2, which equals negative 10. So f of negative 2 is negative 10. So when I have 3 times f of negative 2, and I know f of 2 is negative 10, that's 3 times negative 10, which equals negative 30. So you can do a lot more with function notation. And then for this one, we're going to have g of x. I forgot what that is already. X squared minus 2x. So g of x equals x squared minus 2x. First thing I'm going to do is find this value, and then I'm just going to multiply it by negative 3. So g of negative 1 equals negative 1 squared minus 2 times negative 1. So negative 1 squared is positive 1 plus 2, that equals 3. So g of negative 1 equals 3. So negative 3 times g of negative 1. We know that g of negative 1 equals 3. So I'm going to multiply and substitute 3 for g of negative 1. And that equals negative 9. And very simple. You're just substituting. Now I have a more complicated one. I know f of x equals 4x minus 2. So everywhere there's an x, first of all, I'm just going to put parentheses first. Wherever there's an x, I'm going to put parentheses. And what am I going to dump in? I'm going to dump in c plus 2. Now, all I'm going to do here, I don't really care about this side. This just tells me, the left side just tells me what I'm inputting. And so my output, I'm going to distribute here and get 4c plus 8. And then bring him down, minus 2. Collect like terms, so I can make this as 4c plus 6. And we have to stop. So we can't combine these. And so f of c plus 2 equals 4c plus 6. Here's another one. Let me write down my g of x, which is x squared minus 2x. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to evaluate this inner part. This is called the inner part. And then I'm going to multiply my inner part, the value I get, by 5. So whatever answer I get, I'm going to multiply by 5. So I'm going to, everywhere there's x, just leave it blank and put parentheses. I'll put the square outside here, minus 2 times this. I'm going to dump in a squared. So a squared, everywhere there's a x. And evaluate. So this equals a to the 4th minus 2a squared. And just for as a side note, this is my cloud thinking. A squared is just you write down a squared twice. This just means write it down twice. Now I have to write it down twice here and twice here. So that would be four of them. So that's a to the 4th. Just as a side note. Okay. Now, that's g of a squared. Now I have to multiply it through by 5. So 5 times g of a squared, or a, what I put x, a squared equals 5 times what this is, a to the 4th minus 2a squared. And all I'm going to do is distribute. My final answer is going to be 5a to the 4th minus 10a squared. And that's your answer. And do I have any more? Oh, I have one more. So again, g of x. Okay, g of x equals x squared minus 2x. So the first thing I'm going to evaluate is g of 2w. So everywhere there's an x, I'm going to leave it blank and just put a holder there with the parentheses. And I'm going to dump in, is my input value, 2W. So this is going to equal, now this is just telling me what I'm inputting. I don't have to do anything on the left. This is 4W squared. Remember, this 2 here just means to write this 2W down twice and multiply. So you have 2 times 2 is 4. W times W is W squared. So that's 4W squared minus 4W. And that's G of 2W. But now we want to multiply everything through by 3. So I'm multiplying this by 3 and this by 3 because I'm trying to do that. So I'm just going to distribute here, and I get 12W squared minus 12W. So 3 of G to the of 2W equals this. And that's my final answer. And this is all.